So you've been breaking down the meta for warriors in phase 3. You came out into a lot of really crazy conclusions here. Like, people are already cheesing it to the max.
I guess probably the ones that'll give people the most damage relative to other people right now would be like cleaving, the dragons that can knock people into the middle of the room, because there's going to be a lot of raid leaders that are going to be terrified of someone screwing that up. So like if you can get your raid to want to stack those dragons and cleave them, that's going to be, in my opinion, a big edge, because most people are just going to say, that dude, why do you need to pad, man? And so if you can get your raid leader to be like, but I want to, that's going to be a big edge. But most of the other ones, other people catch on to it. What have you been doing in the raids? Have you been playing Shaman?
No, I've been playing my warrior. I think the Prot warrior has been like probably the best it's been since phase 1 right now for Prot. Like, vigilance is outrageously busted. I don't have any threat issues anymore. I guess I could go Fury. Like, there are people going Gladiator stance, not for the threat, of course. Like, the threat is worse in Gladiator stance as far as I could see. But like the damage, right? You want to support the raid with damage. Well, I am basically dead weight except for like the threat I do right now, but that's what I like. I don't wanna get the parse. I don't wanna do the whole thing, and my raid is gonna kill the guy. It's a little slower because of it, because I'm probably not going Gladiator stance. But I think the warrior is in a very healthy state for tanking. How do you feel on DPS side though?
Oh yeah, I think it looks great for warrior players, at least. I don't think it's bad for the game either for warriors to be a dominant DPS class. Just because it's like, if you have no utility to offer and you're melee, you kind of... Yeah, exactly. So I feel bad for rogues, I'd say. I mean, rogues look like they're doing pretty good now too, but like usual, rogues kind of lag. If warriors are good, rogues like have a shot at being good, but they're usually just like a worse version of a warrior. Except like in Wrath, early on at least. Like early on, Wrath rogues they're pretty good. Later on, Warrior kind of clowns them. So I feel bad for the yellow boys, I guess. The
TBC rogue was like the best example of it. Nobody wanted a rogue in a raid ever in TBC because they did less damage than a warrior. They didn't even have that Arms tiny itty bitty buff that Arms warriors gave, and like they didn't even do the best damage. Like that, I agree with you that if warriors or rogues are not very strong in the damage, that they are gonna get screwed. I was hoping maybe they would give us some utility, but they are really scared of doing that. So I guess they're gonna have to crank up the numbers.
Yeah, I wish with rogues they get maybe a little more clever with how they balance them. Like, for example, with rogue tanking, them thinking that they should approach it from an evasion tank standpoint. It just doesn't make any sense because you put too much variance. Yeah, because it's like, to make it reliable, they'd have to just be unhittable. So it's like, they need to work like a feral druid, in my opinion. Like, make it maybe give them a paragraph long rune that's like, you get 300% armor, but not against players, but against players you get this instead, like something like that.
I mean, they can do some crazy stuff if they get decent RNG in some fights. For example, Morphas and the other guy whose name I always forget, the one that puts you in the nightmare thing of the kill risk guy, like, they are, to my knowledge, the only people that can like feasibly survive the whole thing without a swap. And they cannot do it every time, but if they get decent energy, they can do it, because the problem with the rogue is exactly that they take no damage, boom, one shot. That's why it doesn't work, the evasion thing. Like, eventually they are gonna get hit, and God forbid they get a parry and they get hit twice.
Yeah, exactly. I'm happy to be a warrior this phase. I'm kind of surprised that the like, originally I didn't think the Glad stance tanking would really work. I thought that like they'd probably build threat in a way where like it wouldn't hold, but I guess they just pump so much damage that like it just doesn't even matter. I'd probably, if I was tanking though, I would most likely do what you're doing and just be deep prot, make it a little easier on the healers. It'd be different if you're playing with like everybody and they're all trying to parse, like, go Glad stance. I assume that it's enough damage per healer requirement that it's an upgrade for your group. But if you're not like in a super serious group, I mean, I'd rather, not die in a situation where Parat would maybe make it easier to not die. I'd feel very foolish if I was like, oh, I got overkilled by 100. If I wasn't in Glad stance, bro.
Bro, I was getting, like, they nerfed Trash of Eranicos. Now that the nerfs kicked in, we're gonna see a lot more Gladiator tanks. But like, I owe an apology to Blizzard, because when I saw that rune, I was like, this is the most stupid thing I've ever seen. But like now that the meta has settled and like it turns out that the warrior has so much surplus threat that they can afford to lose threat with Gladiator, because Gladiator is a threat loss. Like the best gladiators are doing about 10% less threat than I do. It's still plenty. And like you get like another full-on DPS in your raid. So I am very happy because like the player base that likes the Fury tank, the dual wield, I do a lot of damage, those people are gonna be happy. They still exist in the game now, and in a different form of course. And the normal tank, my crowd that didn't get to be a normal tank for 2 phases, now we can be normal again. So I think this is the best of both worlds for the warrior, honestly.
Yeah, I think Warrior seems like it's in a really good spot. I'm curious what the upcoming balance patches are going to look like. I wouldn't be too surprised if they get nerfed. I also wouldn't be too surprised if they let it just kind of ride. I imagine for the average warrior, it'll appear very balanced. Like you'll have a pretty easy time getting into a raid group, but you won't just like stick out at the top of the meters. Like if you check the best warriors and the runs that they're in, like they kind of jut out a bit. But if you check most of the bosses, a warrior DPS is not hugely different from the other classes DPS wise.
It's about 4th place, except on the very top. The very top is insane.
Yeah, I just wonder how Blizzard's going to feel about it. Like, if all the classes have a pretty easy time getting into raid, then I think the game's pretty balanced. If that's not the case, then I think that's really like the best way to look at balance. Usually, I mean, it depends on how competitive a game is. It's not always the right way, but I think it's a decent little lens to use.
Yeah, because vanilla works different than normal WoW. Like in retail WoW, if one guy does 1500 DPS and the other guy does 1000, it's not balanced and it doesn't work. But in here, like, utility is such an important factor because, random example here, Shadow Weaving the Shadow Priest, like 10% more damage to Shadow, right? The Shadow Priest can freaking suck in damage, and if you got enough Warlocks in the raid, he's gonna still be contributing enough damage to the raid through the buff that he still is very good. Like, logs never see, it's not really logs. DPS averages never really show the whole story because of that. But like, of course, I think we need like the classes with the least utility are the ones that get the most love on the DPS meters. I don't know if that's the healthiest way to look at it, but that's the way vanilla works, and I don't think we should mess with it.
Yeah, I think it's a good way to look at balancing the games anyways. Like, playing in 2019, mages, for example, especially early on, like when fire immunity is a thing in BWL and MC, they were, in a lot of respects, the worst DPS class, but they had no problem getting into raids. Like, it wouldn't be difficult to convince a pug raid leader to put you in and be like, hey, I, have Prebus, can I get an invite? And they'll be like, sure, I just want to start the raid. I am not in a hurry, to find I am in a hurry. I want to add anybody so we get polling, because the content was easy. And, like Sunken Temple, it's the same thing. I think the content being pretty easy is good, because it's like, make a situation where raid leaders think, dude, I just want to fill the group, and then make it so most people like to be in the group too. So, I mean, like, in my opinion, Feral Druid should be a class that people really desire playing. If you make, so like Shamans, maybe they're a little OP, but them being a desirable class to play is kind of nice, in that it makes the gaming experience better for all the melee on Horde. It's a nice feature. I think Feral's not saying that they need to be OP like Shamans or whatever, but if you make people really want to be Feral, I think it makes the experience of other players better. So maybe Feral should get a little more love.
I don't know, Feral DPS is, I don't know exactly how it looks, but like, Feral in general, if you wanna parse, this is not for everybody I guess, but if you wanna parse, Mangle is like how much % extra bleed damage? That's a huge thing for the warriors.
I think it's 30.
Yeah, like if you're a warrior, you want that. Like, I don't think they were gonna run out of Feral spots anytime soon, and of course they are another Wind Fury, even if they are not the ideal thing. But they are doing decent damage right now, right? Aren't they? They are doing like 5th place, something like that. For a druid, that's good.
Oh yeah, no, I just mean that I don't know if feral druids feel like they're having enough fun in raid that it's easy to find enough of them to keep the other melee players buffed,
Probably
which could make it harder. Yeah, for like a raid leader to justify taking a melee. Like if you don't have the ferals, then you probably wouldn't want the other melee. So like, potentially, I think it'd be nice if feral got some more love, just because I think it would make other classes also feel better. I mean, in the same way, like warlocks would probably enjoy if it was hard to get a shadow priest, Like, if there wasn't a lot of them and they wanted Shadow Weaving, Warlocks would benefit from Shadow Priest getting buffs. That way Shadow Weaving gets brought in.
Yeah.
Just the same kind of concept as that.
We don't want to go back to TBC Alliance back in the day where there were like 3 shamans in the entire server.
Dude, it was f***ing terrible. Like, TBC, I think if you had an ideal raid comp, man, what a fantastic expansion, but the average warrior didn't have a shaman.
I don't know if you agree with this. I know you do a lot of raid leading videos, so this is an interesting point here, but I always thought that the main tank should be the raid lead of a raid. I think it's the ideal spot to do it. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I think for most people, yes. If you have a main tank that can kind of read your mind, it's probably better to not. But like, it's nice how if you're the main tank, you cut all the communication between the raid leader and the main tank out of the equation. And it's different though. Like, probably the best position is to be if it's like a speed run, and if it's and if a pole hunter is utilized, it's probably best to be the pole hunter. But you need a main tank that's kind of like raid leading with you, in my opinion, and that's like a hard relationship to build, because like you got to have the same opinions about so many things and kind of know what each of you wants. For most people, just be the main tank. It's easier. Even if you're trying to speed run. Like I did tons of really competitive speed runs where we didn't have like a real pull hunter, except for some pulls you need a hunter. Like if you had somebody try to face pull something, it'd be a problem, but you can be a top 1% speedrunning guild with no pull hunter. It's like it's not a big deal.
I see even like in retail now, because like that thing is so insane, like synchronized swimming while you're like disabling a bomb in a space. But like they got a raid leader that is not even in the raid now because we got Discord streaming. And like because it takes so much focus now that the raid leader is not even in the raid anymore because he cannot raid and raid lead the guild at the same time. It's outrageous. Yeah, I don't want to maintain the illusion because I know a lot of classic players that maintain the illusion. I wouldn't last a minute in retail, okay? I would get destroyed. I am barely an acceptable player in classic. Like that thing is so hard. I'm like, honestly, I don't think it like 70% of the player base in classic, 80% can handle that. I think it's too hard. Like I don't think it's healthy for the game either to be that hard, but
oh yeah, I think classic, if it was like retail, it'd be very bad for it. Because I mean, when even though I only have probably 5 or 6 hours like doing retail, every hour I have been like the most important. Well, it's like, you know, to have fun is like very important. That's like the primary thing. But like it's like 50% is like have fun and 50% is like I need you guys to grill me because it'll help me learn. So like don't tell me like, oh, it's okay you made that mistake. Like tell me exactly what I f***ed up and how you would have not f***ed it up. Like, you know, because my friends, they try to be nice sometimes. Like, you gotta be a little rougher with me, so that way I learn.
Oh, I was put through Eranico's bootcamp, my first raid, bro. That thing was, I don't think I'm messing that guy up again. It does work, I guess.
Yeah. People can be a little politer than what happened in there, but, you know, sometimes it's good for people to really needle you. Well, especially if you have no idea what's going wrong.
It's one of those things, I guess, if you raid with the same people often enough, it's like you can get really mad at somebody for like 10 seconds and then go back to normal, and that's just the way it works. It's a little weirder with rando, so you can probably do that.
Oh, but, yeah.
I miss the
like
so
random
much.
People never.
So
I'm really happy with how they have a lot of the mechanics in ST, like I think that the Festering Slime boss, that's a really cool boss. Yeah, it's so creative too for them to come up with it. I like how you can cleave the dumb little furniture. I mean, it kind of sucks that the optimal strat for a DPS warrior seems like you get eaten and then you just hit him. Like in my opinion, maybe make it so the boss is programmed so this might be impossible, so this might be stupid, but make the front of the boss count as the back of the boss, so that way if you get eaten, instead of hitting him from behind, you get parries, so it's like your DPS gets reduced from getting eaten. I think something like that would be cool, because it kind of sucks. It's like, how do you parse? Oh, you like don't do any of the mechanics, you tell your raid group, hey, can you guys just heal me through it, and then I get to, you know, just spank the boss. So that's a little lame, but other than that, I think it's a great fight.
Parsing is always gonna be stupid. Like, the top level is always gonna be stupid. Like, they are cleaving things they are not supposed to cleave, they are ignoring mechanics, they are having 10 people give them something that nobody would ever give to them unless they were trying to parse. I don't think we should balance around parsing. I do think that being eaten constantly is not a good idea either. I think they should put a debuff on you because, like, what's going to happen once that the healers can handle it a little better is that we're going to have 5 people inside the boss DPS the whole time just to kill it faster, period. And that's going to get annoying. Like, we're going to have half the raid not doing mechanics anymore.
Maybe Warcraft blocks can even put a restriction in. Like, they can make it so, like, if you get eaten by the goo, you personally, like, your parse is, like, deregistered. Like, the rest of your raid, like, it can count, but, like, you personally get f***ed just to make it so that way. That's not the strat. Like, I thought it was super cool, for example, watching, if anybody who wants to see how to play Warrior better, bro, go look at Alondo's VODs. But, like,
insane.
Watch that guy, like, just smoke the slime, and he's also helping out with the furniture, and he's not getting eaten by the goo, at least in the first couple ones I saw him do, like, and he's, you know, best in the world without even, like, cheesing it, just smoking. Like, I like the idea of that being the right way to play. Although I wouldn't be able to do it, like, anywhere near to that level, but, like, hey, that's all good, you know?
I think he's even sneaking cleaves in between the item and slime in some parts. Like, I think he's... I checked it out, like, his raid was leaving out, like, a little HP left on the items that were next to the boss, so he could get the last cleave in before going back to DPS in the boss. Like the synchronization...
I don't think they're on purpose, though. I think he's just, like, he's just helping out. But I don't think they're setting him up to like pad in some way. Or for example, on Aranicus, he got an insane parse while running and saving some healers, which like hurts your DPS to get off the boss and go hit a non-debuffed ad and like pull it off a healer, and he's like still getting like best in the world numbers. Like, that's awesome when play like that can stack up on the leaderboards. But, I mean, padding's fine, too, you know? It's still fun. There's nothing too wrong about having some padding.
I love the start of the tier, because this is before the cheeses kick in. Like, next week we're gonna start seeing, like, all the people at the top are gonna be cheesing it, like 100% cheesing it. And yeah, because, like, he can do that now and be at the top, but he's not gonna be able to do that now and get at the top in like, a week. He's gonna have to cheese it, too, with everybody else.
Yeah, I bet you're right. Like, people are going to catch up on that.
I always said, once you get a 90% parse, they should roll the credits. I got, like, the difference between 90% and 99% is, like, it doesn't really affect the normal raider. It's just for the eeping, the bragging about it, that's it.
Yeah, and for a lot of classes, it's, you really killed, like, time sensitive, so it's a little silly to beat yourself up, but, most likely, it wouldn't be too hard for just about anybody who's playing with a group that averages a 90 parse for them to then get like a 99, unless it's like the group averages a 90 and you're getting like super high 90s and there's guys getting like 70s. That's a little different. But it's like if it's everybody in the group is getting a 90, yourself included, you could probably get 99s without.
Bro, if you get like a full raid of 90 parsers, you're getting like so much that the bosses are gonna die so fast. It's not gonna be speedrun fast, but the bosses are gonna die so freaking fast. Like,
yeah, I love so many of these fights. How, especially just the two dragons with the opportunity to cleave them, but not necessarily like the requirement. I also like how it's not very hard to avoid getting knocked in the middle, but it's something you have to pay attention to. They're mechanics that I think they're on your mind and it makes you feel engaged, but they're not actually all that punishing. It's like fake difficulty. Like when you do it right, it feels good, but it's actually super unlikely you do it wrong. I think that's good, you know, because who gives a about making it actually about skill? It's like about feeling good.
Yeah, I think that's just okay, conspiracy here. I think that's just the Blizzard, the men keeping the melees down again, because nothing is stopping a warlock or a shadow priest to dot both of the guys on DPS 1. They are just keeping us down again, man. That's what's going on. That's right. But yeah, we're gonna try that strat next week. Actually, the stacking them for cleaving. Was talking about it with the other time. Yeah. It's just
that's awesome.
A little bit of trying the angles right, because people get breathed on.
The Ogum fight's another funny one. Just stack them, even though one of the mobs is pretty much immune, because it like heals 20% of its health a second. That's just straight pad to stack it on that, but
Like, I'm surprised that it still counts towards the logs, because the damage does go through, he just regenerates it, but I thought they probably did that for threat, so like classes that do threat from damage don't get screwed, because like if you are a prot paladin and you want to tank the guy that is immune, you can't if he was immune to damage, because most of your threat is damage. You have like no threat. You have a lot of threat modifiers, but not a lot of base threats, so you couldn't tank him.
Warcraft logs could resolve it. Although, I mean, it's not a big deal if they don't, but I think it'd be kind of cool if they did. Yeah, if they make, like, damage done on the guy who's regenerating doesn't count until the other one's dead. I mean, that would screw whatever tank is, like, on that one, of course, but, like, on Grubbus, it was that way. The people, like, the off-tank, if you're controlling the crocodile, like, the damage didn't count because it wasn't a requirement to kill him.
My tank parses, I didn't even check them, but I assure you they are god-awful, because like I am prot and everybody else is Gladiator 10, so they are cranking 1,000 DPS and I'm just there with shield slam.
I really like that Hazaz and Morphos fight too. That one is, I think, so well designed. I'm happy they fixed that
it started being the easiest, and now it's, I think, one of the hardest in the raid. It might be easily top 3 hardest. I would say it's probably harder than Hakar too. Well, Hakar is easy.
Yeah, I think that one's gonna end up like the... Like, it's gonna end up like the zapping boss, I think, and people are gonna see that it's, there's a lot of strats you can do. I mean, for example, you don't really need to do the tank swaps if you, realize that you can kind of just slam the boss fast enough. You don't even need a lot of DPS, but, like, you can quite easily get the first phase, so get the boss to 80%, and the first sleep happens before the main tank needs a swap, and so then the dot just falls off. You know, and the same thing happens again at, what is it, 40%, I believe? So it's not too hard for a low DPS raid to solo tank it, and you can, for example, have the whole raid like stack on the boss's ass while it's casting Eternal Slumber, kill a couple Ellies, and then you instantly pop out. So like then you don't need to worry about doing any fancy stuff like having people topside.
I think that's
drag
gonna be
over the raid.
At least the POG strat from the future is gonna be just stacking on the back now. Like this happens to me every time a raid comes out. I do a tanking guide, and the next day or two, like they changed all the mechanics of that fight because it wasn't working as intended. Like the LOS strat was so easy.
Oh yeah, I made like an Adalarian guide and then released it, and like 10 hours later, the people I was showing in the video were doing half the DPS of the other people, like because they had like an HP nerf, and people realized you could like do a 0 phase one, and so it's like these people are doing 1200 DPS. I bet people are going to do a lot more soon. Then it's like the next day people are doing 2200.
Yeah, but like the part that gets me really happy about Sunken Temple is like the numbers were stupid, they were wacko, but they took a look at them, they fixed most of it. But there's not a single fight design that I look at and I think this is stupid. I think this is the best raid we had so far in a department. Like, if you compare it to Nomeregan, so many stupid mechanics there. BFD, not quite stupid, it was super easy, but not great design either. I think Sunken Temple is like 8 out of 8 solid boss design, and I am really happy about that. They got a lot better.
Yeah, I totally agree. I really think they did a great job getting it to the current state it's in. I'm not going to say I think that the way they went about it was good. Because, like, for example, they one of the things they claimed is that our internal testing team was a little better than we thought. That's like something Agron put on Twitter, and I'd be like, motherfucker, you're claiming your internal testers are as good as Noda? Like, yeah, I'm like, dude, don't lie to us. Like, you can just say, brother, we didn't test it, but you can't be that mad, guys. We fixed it in 3 days. Like, if they said that, it'd be like, bro, I get it.
I assure you they didn't test it.
Testing? Whatever.
I assure you they didn't test it. They got 25 people in the team. Are you telling me you got like 4/5 of the team, 20 out of 25 people to test it? Like, you didn't test it. Like, and that's like a concerning thing that I think like the team is too small to test a 20-man, because I'm pretty sure they did test Nomeregan because they could. 10 people is a lot easier to come by. I don't think they tested this raid at all. Like, they might have done like some like 5 people testing where they buffed the stats of everybody so they could kind of simulate what's going on, so they could no bugs, but like there is no way they actually tested with 20 real people. I don't think they did, period.
Yeah, I feel like the test should be something like you talk to the team, you're like, all right, guys, we're going to get Friday off today, but not to test on Friday because Thursday we're going to be testing. And what we're going to do is we're going to walk into the raid, and every 30 minutes that elapses, you have to chug a beer. And we need to be able to complete the raid within 4 hours the first time doing it. And if we can, it passes the test. And then, like, something like that should be the criteria. Because if you make it harder than that, you're going to lock out like 60% of the community.
Yeah, I think there's also like
they didn't test it.
They didn't test it. They didn't test it. And like honestly, you cannot necessarily be a great raider if you are a game designer, right? Like being a good DPSer is kinda hard, and a lot of these people are like old, you know, like. I am 25 and I can already feel quite a bit of it. Your reflexes start slowing down a lot, right? I cannot DPS nearly as good as I could 5 years ago. And like, they might be a decent... I get the point that he tried to make, even though I think it's a complete lie. That like, you cannot, you gotta take the testing team and make it a little harder because the testing team is not gonna be very good. But yeah, they didn't test it. They didn't test it. If I gotta guess, they didn't test it, period.
I wish they wouldn't say these little lies to us like they did, because it's like, I think that they got a fine result, but I hate how I can't trust Blizzard, you know? So it's like, hey, Sunken Temple, it's an A. You did a great job. Just don't tell me the dog ate your homework, okay? Like, you did a good job. You can tell me the truth. You can say you didn't test it. It's all good, you know? Like, if they nail 60, like, if at 60, every raid is Sunken Temple tier, that will be Classic Plus.
Cataclysm is done.
Yeah, I don't like runes really and all the changes in the game, but like, even though I'm a baby about that, if they make everything kind of feel like Sunken Temple does for the difficulty, I think that would be amazing game design. Like, it would be absolutely fantastic. And I've been bitching about Season of Discovery like the whole time, but like they really did a great job in Sunken Temple, I think.